Thanks very much. Right. Okay. Welcome, everybody. Hello. I'm Michael. I'm the head of communications at Resonance. I'm the head of Resonance Academy, and I'm your go-to person for training on the Resonance Pro application and becoming a Resonance Pro practitioner. And I'm here to help you on your journey and make sure you get a really well-rounded approach to Resonance Pro that really enables you to help yourself and other people. So I'm going to start straight away with sharing my screen and get straight into the application. Okay, everyone. So you're familiar with the Resonance Pro client record, I'm sure. So here it is. So I'm just going to go down to my own profile and start a new analysis. So, and starting a new analysis, I'm just going to be pressing record and recording my voice. So I'll do that now. A, E, I, O, U, Michael Dale, back spasm in the erector spinae muscle T lumbar region. So I've just recorded my voice, and the application is now asking me to select voice harmonics to start the entrainment process. So I'm going to do that, and you'll see there's a box here that says don't show this message again. We really recommend you leave these messages here for as long as possible so you can really familiarize yourself with the different steps. So we encourage you not to delete these messages too quickly. Keep them there, learn them, and they'll just help you to keep everything fresh. So I'm going to begin the harmonics process. So at the moment, you're just hearing the normal bell sound, and this is improving the entrainment. And now I'm going to actually analyze my voice. So this is where we're applying the algorithm to my voice to break it down into data components. So that's happening now. And the fast Fourier transform algorithm has been applied to my voice and broken it down into its data parts. And that's complete. So I'm going to continue. Now we're at the next section, which is analyze image. Now, in this section, you can upload a picture of yourself or your client, and that makes it much easier for you to obviously identify who people are when you're looking through your client records, especially if you have a lot of clients. And then what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be analyzing my voice again by pressing begin analysis. And this is going to be an analysis specifically for the auric field imaging feature, which you can find a course on the Resonance Academy for. There's a short mini course on everything you need to know about auric field imaging that you can find on Resonance Academy. So because we're not going to focus on that today, I'm going to skip that and we're going to move straight into the basics. So, let's just see. We've got some more people wanting to come in. Okay, so we are now looking at the system overview screen. And As you can see, there are three main categories on Resonance Pro: body, mind, and biofield. And I'm going to begin analysis. Okay, so results explained. Items that yield a high or a low score indicate a probability of disturbance or an imbalance. Identifying the items that you consider significant. Drag these items to the balancing trays, select the timer, and allow the tones to create balance and harmony for you or your client. Okay. For a deeper analysis, tap on the up-down arrows to open and close the subpanels. You can add all the items in a category to your balancing trays at one time. And more programs can be found under the navigation tab located in the top right-hand corner. We're going to cover those features in more advanced trainings, and there'll be further mini courses coming out to support you to really familiarize yourself with those features as well. But again, today we're just going to focus on the basics. So it's all about having a strong foundation of the basics, and then you can add these extra features when you feel more confident and you feel more familiar with the basics. So now, how a session would normally begin if I was doing a session with a client is that you would start with a quick balance. And the purpose of a quick balance is just to rectify any levels, because I'm just going to close these up. You know, what we're analyzing is your voice. And although we're hoping for complete accuracy, there may not be, you know, a perfect representation of what's happening in your body through your voice. So you're going to see a lot of different levels when you do your first voice analysis. You're going to see, for example, today's stress, I'm in the red. Spinal energy, vitamins. Now, this can be a bit sort of disturbing for some people. They think, well, oh, what's that? I better deal with that. And it's important not to get distracted by these levels. These are just a representation of what could be happening in your system. So it's best to start a session with a quick balancing process. So you'll see this panel on the right-hand side, and this is the quick balancing timer. And I'm just going to take that down to 1 minute. In a typical session, I would normally do a 3-minute quick balance, first of all, with a client. And the purpose of this is just to level everything out and improve the person's well-being and absorption of the specific problem that we are going to be focusing on in the session. So I'm just going to begin the quick balance, and that's going to go on for 1 minute. And as you'll see, I'm now seeing a 3D image of the human body. This is a feature to access these 3D images if you haven't already. This is a feature that you can find in the extra features at the top right-hand side of the screen. There's 3 dots. You can click those dots, and if you click on accessories, you will find 3D imaging, and you can download these images so that you can see these images while you're doing your quick balancing. If you want these images to look at, it's quite a nice visual stimulus while you're doing your balancing process. For some people, I personally prefer just to close my eyes and relax, but you know, it's a nice thing to have on your screen if you enjoy it. So the balancing is coming to an end. Okay, so the quick balancing has come to an end, and you can see now we've got some percentage rectifications at the bottom of the screen. I'll try and I can't zoom in on that, unfortunately, but you can see at the bottom of the screen it says harmony 83%, alignment 90%, energy flow 60%. So there is a bit of an imbalance there. You can see between, say, alignment, which seems pretty good at 90%, and energy flow, which is right down at 60%. So what I found personally, one way you can approach this imbalance, if you find someone has a really significant imbalance, you want to be potentially doing another quick balance straight away. Because the important thing to understand here and note is that when you do a balancing, the levels in your analysis aren't going to change. This, for example, this red is not going to go to yellow or green, because you have to think about this like a blood test. If I take a blood test and I give you the results, those results aren't going to change. This is the results of a test on your voice. What does change are your percentage rectifications, which are down here. Okay. So throughout your session, when you're working with someone, you can be keeping an eye on these percentage rectifications and seeing what happens to those, and aiming for a good balance by the end of the session. Now, there are a couple of ways we can approach this. There are a couple of different ways we can approach this as practitioners, and this is where you really have to develop your skills and really be in tune with your clients. If you feel like a client is a bit skeptical about bioresonance, they're not that familiar with it, and they need a bit more time to adapt to it, then another quick balancing might be helpful. What I find on myself is that I tend to do 2 quick balances in a row. If my first quick balance doesn't yield a good balance, it doesn't yield a good closing in on the percentage rectifications, and then I'm ready to go into the main specific diagnosis that I'm working with my client. So what's very important with Resonance Pro is that we're not dealing with just general well-being here. That is very much what Resonance Home, the Resonance Home application is for. When you're working with a client on Resonance Pro, you want to make sure that they have a specific diagnosis, and they are not coming to you for a medical diagnosis or a diagnosis of any kind. You are not in a position to offer a diagnosis. Resonance is a well-being application, and it's not a medical diagnosis tool. You would use blood tests or scans or some other medical intervention for a diagnosis. This is an analysis of your voice that may lead to, helpful things that can really support a person's well-being. So it's really important that a person has a specific diagnosis. So the specific diagnosis that I'm working with at the moment, and just to underline that point, it's really important that you make this clear to your clients. This is not a medical treatment. This is a wellness tool that can help a person's body become much more responsive and receptive to health and well-being. It is not something that's going to change a person's body in a medical sense, and that's really important for people to understand. It doesn't cure anything, but it can really help your body to get into the right frequency or vibration for optimal well-being. and allow that natural healing and recovery and harmonizing effect that has on the human body to happen, so it helps facilitate that process. So the specific diagnosis that I'm going to be looking at today is spinal energy, because I have a muscle spasm in my erector spinae muscle in the T region of my spine. And I've had that for some years, and I've tried a lot of different chiropractors, osteopaths, physiotherapists, massage therapists, and unfortunately, no one has ever really been able to help me with it apart from one practitioner. So I'm interested in using resonance to see if it will help with my spine, my spinal energy. So here we have the spinal energy section, and as you can see, it's come up yellow. Now, what I can do is I can click on spinal energy, and it's going to come up with the different regions of the spine. And as you can see, you've got the whole spinal column here. So again, if you're working with a specific area of the spine and you want to do, and your client has a specific diagnosis, for example, I have an L1 fracture that I got when I was 21, about 20 years ago. And, that is a specific diagnosis. And if I want to work on that specifically, I can, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close this box off, because I'm not looking to just, I'm looking for just general spinal well-being today. So then I'm going to take spinal energy and I'm going to drag it into the daily balancing tray. And now you can see I've placed the entire spinal energy section into the daily balancing tray. So that's all of these have gone into the daily balancing tray, even though some of them are green and some of them are yellow and blue, and red. I'm just going for a general balancing of my entire spine, because, I sit in front of a desk a lot, and I also have this back problem. So it's fair for me to think that, I'm going to get some benefit from a full spinal energy. And then, is there any vitamins or minerals that could support this this healing? Is there anything else that could support this healing? And this is where you really, as a Resonance Pro practitioner, this is where you can really shine. Is that if you really want to add value to your client, you really want to be looking at all the different ways that their diagnosis can be supported, and you really want to be helping them and researching them and getting as much information from them as possible about what they have tried for their diagnosis and what they believe may work. Maybe there's a specific bacteria that they've had a problem with, and that's been medically verified. Maybe there's a specific issue with their muscular system or something like that that's been verified. Maybe they are a vegetarian or a vegan and potentially low on essential amino acids that you can't, that you don't only get from animal proteins. You only get all your amino acids from animal proteins. So a lot of vegans and vegetarians are low on some essential amino acids. So this might be something you might think of. My client's having some muscle issues, and they're vegetarian. They're potentially not getting enough amino acids, so it's logical to assume that it might be worth adding amino acids to today's balancing. And again, rather than focusing on a specific one, amino acids, just like vitamins, it's good to just have a daily dose of them in general. So, we know that that's going to support muscular health, so we can add that in as well. And then, again, it's whatever else. Maybe there are certain herbs or vitamins that you feel that might be helpful, and you can put those in, or maybe there is something your client specifically requests. Maybe they are concerned about a certain sensitivity. Maybe they've been complaining about their sensitivity to Wi-Fi or something like that, electrical appliances, and they think that that might be affecting their, causing pain in their body as well. Then you can offer that as well. So it's really important that you have an in-depth conversation with your client and really understand their situation, understand what they've tried, and really try to understand, what may be helpful for them. So it's a partnership, it's a collaborative relationship with your client to really support them in their wellness journey, rather than just telling them what to do, which would be more of a doctor's role. I see the role of a really well-rounded resonance pro practitioner is to really be a wellness partner, a wellness collaborator with your client, and really be on their team and spotting those things that they might not be seeing, finding out those things that they might not be aware of, and helping them to really take a comprehensive and quite methodical approach to their diagnosis. So, we could look at body systems, for example. There may be, it may be worth just adding the muscular system in as well, just because the pain is related to a muscle. So again, now you can see, rather than bringing in the whole category of body systems, I'm just going to focus on the muscular system. Okay. And I've gone through, we're going to get into and because I have a background in psychotherapy. I've worked as a counselor and a life coach for 15 years. So I'm always interested in the emotional context of my client's physical situation. So often I'm going to ask questions about their emotions as well, because, as we're finding out that, the mind body connection is very, very strong. And often, a pain in our back might be linked to some kind of emotional, uh, you know, insecurity, or not feeling supported or something like that. And if you're interested in these types of correlations, an author like Louise Hay offers a comprehensive map of the human body and how different emotions correlate to different physical ailments and pains. And that can be a really interesting perspective to bring to your clients as well. So I'm going to focus specifically on the emotional component of what my client might be experiencing, which is me in this case. So is there any anger going on? Is there any worry going on? These are very typical emotions. The person might have some worries about their finances or a relationship. They might be angry about something that's happened at work or something like that. So, there may be an emotional component to what they're experiencing, and it can be helpful. There might be a deep sadness. They may have lost a loved one, and it may be helpful for them just to inquire into these things, and and add anything that may be helpful for them. Anxiety is a very, very common issue, and often people with anxiety and depression experience recurring physical pains as well. So the invitation here is to really be thorough and do your research properly and really have a very empathic and curious relationship with your client. So you gain a deep understanding of who they are as a person, and you're not just saying, okay, you've got a back problem, let's just focus on your muscle, but you're taking a holistic view to this person's general well-being. Okay. Regret, for example, is a very common emotional disturbance that many people have. So this is where the levels may be quite helpful, but again, not to be taken too too much on board, not to be over identified with. It's important to remember this is our voice analysis and it's giving us information, but we're also using our own awareness of where we are in our lives and what we're actually focusing on. So a person might see, for example, anger right up in the red and think, well, I'm not very angry. And it's like, well, okay, well, maybe look, let's just add it in anyway if you feel comfortable with that, and let's see if that provides you any benefit. Maybe it's not fully present, the anger in your mind yet. So, and the person might say, well, I am feeling quite sad because I did lose somebody, and we can add that in as well. And again, if you're interested in, the emotional connection between specifically back pain and um, you know, emotions, painful emotions. Dr. John Sarney, who wrote an excellent book called Healing Back Pain. I can give you a really, really insightful overview of his 20 years of practice with healing back pain and the strong correlation to emotional disturbance that he found in his work. So, just another example of how doing your research and being a holistically minded practitioner can really, really add value to your clients and to your own wellness approach. So now you can see that I've added 5 items to the daily balancing tray. I've got spinal energy, I've got amino acids, I've got the muscular, I've got anger, I've got sadness, and I'm ready to do my daily balancing. So as you can see, the timer here, there's a separate timer for daily balancing. So I'm just going to reduce that timer down to a few minutes. Now, typically with a client, if it's the first time with a client and it's their first session, the quick balance is a really good way to start. And just do a 3-minute quick balance. And then you can see how they respond to the treatment. Because in rare cases, some people do experience a bit of lightheadedness and nausea with Resonance Pro. And it can reduce some people's blood pressure a bit. So it's really important that you make people aware of that before the session. And all of that information is in the Preparing Your Client for a Session training, which you'll find on the Resonance Academy. That training is there for you. And it's very important that you complete that training and get that, give your client all the correct information so that they're fully prepared for their session with you and they know what to expect. Because a prepared client is a client that's ready to have a successful session. Yeah. And a client that feels respected and feels like you really value them and you're supporting them in your very professional service. Okay. So, as I said, a 3-minute quick balance, and then, going into the daily balancing, we've got our specific diagnosis that we're working with. In this case, it's a muscle spasm in the rectus spinae muscle in the T region of the spine. And we've chosen these these different markers, biomarkers to work on. And what you'll notice is this has been a collaborative process between me and the client. It hasn't been a diagnostic process where I've said, well, you should do this, this, and this. You know, I've checked in with the client. Well, what are you aware of? What things can we add that might be helpful for you? You know, what are the emotional components that might be present here? So I'm asking questions that are helping my client to have a comprehensive, holistic wellness experience with me. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, because we're just doing a demonstration here, I'm just going to do a 1 minute on the daily balancing tray, and let's see how the percentage rectifications are altered by this. So at the moment, we're harmony 83%, alignment 90%, and energy flow 60%. So we've got an average percentage rectification of 77% overall. So let's do our balancing now and see what happens. So, if you're working with a client in person, I would highly recommend a high quality pair of headphones like these. These headphones are called Rode NTH 100 headphones. They're very, very comfortable, and they have 100% perfect sound accuracy. And what that means is that your client's going to be hearing every single sound in perfect clarity and getting the maximum benefit they can from the resonance frequencies that they're listening to. So these headphones are very, very well priced and a very, very high quality product. So if you are working in person with clients, personally, I recommend these particular headphones as a very, very good product to give your client a really high quality experience. Okay, so interesting. So our balancing is finished, and we've had a percentage change. So we've got harmony 90%, that's the same. Alignment 64, energy flow 58, and we're coming up to, and we're still on 70% percentage rectification. So as you can see, this is not a test, but we are monitoring these rectifications to see what happens. And the next thing we can do now is we could ask the client, are you comfortable? Are you experiencing any nausea? Are you experiencing any lightheadedness? Would you like a glass of water? You know, make sure the client is comfortable. And obviously, if you're working with them remotely via the Resonance Go app, same thing. You'll be speaking to them on a video call, and you'll be sending them the frequencies through the application. And just check in with your client and just make sure they're comfortable. And if they're having any insights or anything like that, that can be very, very helpful. Maybe the client is realizing that they have been angry and they weren't fully conscious of that. And, maybe the balancing has helped them to become aware of that, and they're going to be able to let that go to some degree. And that's going to be very helpful for them. So it's really important that you just, have a good, empathic, compassionate, curious relationship with your client, and you're not just telling them what to do. You're really drivingly interested in what their situation is, and you're really curious about what they've tried already, the diagnosis they've received, and how you might be able to support them with their wellness journey. Okay. So it's really important that you get that point home if you really want to become a well-rounded holistic well-being practitioner and a successful bioresonance practitioner. So now the clients had a few minutes just to gather themselves. We could go two ways at this point. We could approach the session with another balancing. Maybe we could go for another quick balance, but this time we do a 5-minute quick balance. And then we could go to the daily balancing tray again. That would be one approach. So, you know, it's really important that we work with what the client is going to help the client most. And you can do that again by going for a quick balance. What we found in some cases with clients is that just doing one quick balance after another with a break in between can be very, very effective. And many people reported during COVID that they were having excellent results with their symptoms and helping their bodies to really get into a better state for dealing with the virus they were experiencing. They were having a very good results by doing a quick balancing for 15 minutes and then taking a 15-minute break and then doing another quick balancing and then taking a 15-minute break and then doing another quick balancing and then taking a 15-minute break and then doing another quick balancing. Now, that is really down to personal choice. At Resonance Pro, our official recommendation is 20 to 30 minutes of balancing per day. But it's really down to your discretion as an individual. But you need to make that very, very clear to your clients. And in terms of how you want to charge for your services, you may be charging per hour for your services and including your minutes, your balancing minutes in your service, or you may be charging your client just for the use of Resonance Pro. You're really going to have to think about what works best for you, try things out and find the best approach for you. Personally, for me, I find quick balancing can be very helpful. And I often like to do it once or twice just to see how my percentage rectifications are impacted. But I really like to focus on a specific diagnosis, do my research, and find out what I might be able to add specifically that may be able to help me. And this is where you can really do some fascinating research. For example, looking into bark flower essences, which is a whole interesting body of homeopathic remedies. And each of these bark flower essences has a very specific correlation with certain well-being markers, related to anxiety, depression, sleep problems, stomach issues, all these kind of things. So for example, if you did a Google search, you looked up what back flower essences are good for anxiety, you'll find some very interesting results, and you can add those into your, as an extra value addition for your clients if they're open to it. You could be adding those essences to their treatment that day, and on an ongoing process, ongoing. And also the biofield is a fascinating category for me. Here, particularly if your client has a spiritual inclination, the spiritual protection category is very interesting. Some people, feel like they desire some kind of protection. They feel like they're trying to release some kind of spiritual entity or something that is blocking their energy in some way and that kind of thing. Or they want to connect more with the light of their spirituality, all of these things, chanting and invocations. I mean, who doesn't love chanting and invocations? We all know how therapeutic and healing it can be to just be in a church and listen to a choir or hear some monks chanting or do some chanting ourselves. So these are ways that you can really add extra value to your clients and really, in my experience, speak to your clients according to their values and what is important to them and what they value is really a great approach. Speaking as a practitioner for 15 years, so certain clients are going to have a spiritual inclination. Other clients are going to have a much more scientific inclination. And what I love about Resonance Pro is that both are really well catered for in this system, and it's a very inclusive system, and there's something for everyone in it. So, if there a lot of people these days have a sensitivities, so if they're worried about any of these things like pesticides, air pollution, all of those things, like if they're just having a concern about that, it's a really nice thing to be able to add into their balancing just to provide that extra support for that individual. It's a really great way to improve your service. So now, so we have done our quick balancing, and then we've done our daily balancing tray. Okay. So let's say we were working with the client and it was just going to be a 3-part session, and we were just going to do one quick balance. We were going to do one daily balancing tray, and then the main hold tray, we were just going to reserve for having a conversation with our client. So they've done their quick balancing, they've done their main daily balancing, and maybe their quick balancing was 3 minutes and their main daily balancing was 7 minutes or 10 minutes. And we're asking them how they feel. And then we're saying, well, is there anything else you would like to add to today's session? And for me, for example, because I work as, in psychotherapy, I'm always curious about how the person relates to their condition. Because what I found is that when we have a combative relationship to our ailment and we're fighting ourselves, it's not a good relationship. And it causes more stress, and it causes more anxiety, and it causes more depression. It's a very upsetting situation to be in when you're in a fight with yourself. So what has worked with my clients over many years and on myself is when we change our relationship from one of combating a problem to collaboration with a problem. So with my back pain, for example, what I've learned to do is be grateful for my back pain. I've learned to say thank you to the pain in my back, which was such an annoyance and a disturbance in my life for so many years. I've learned to be grateful for it. And what that's done has created a collaborative relationship with my pain. So now I'm no longer in a fight with my back pain. I feel like it's helping me in my life in ways that I needed to be helped. And this is a very profound change of perspective. So, one of the benefits of my back pain is that it's really increased my tolerance of pain over the years. So I'm much more I'm much calmer now because I'm much less sensitive to pain because of this continual pain that I've had in my body. And that's made me much less reactive. That's made me have, I used to have a shorter temper, but because of all this back pain I've been through for the years, it's really relaxed me and calmed me down because I just had to surrender to this pain. So this is an example of how the back pain has actually really helped me to become a better person, even though it's been a very challenging experience. And that's a good example of how we can look at the emotional component in a session. So what I would be looking at for the end of the session is just to focus on gratitude. So gratitude for me is one of the main components in the healing process. So we can find gratitude under the emotional category and work with that. So emotional is in the mind section. So gratitude is here, and I can just put it into the main hold tray. And love is another very good one, just to give ourselves some love. It's often we're very, we're very critical of ourselves. We're often very good at loving other people, but not so good at loving ourselves. It's the case for many people. Affection, we're often very good at giving affection to others, but not very good at giving affection to ourselves sometimes. And there can be an interesting correlation between these things. And again, if you're interested in that, I recommend the book of Dr. John Sarney, Healing Back Pain, as a very interesting research on that, a mind-body connection. And I also recommend the work of Louise Hay, another very interesting author on that subject. So I've put these items into the main hold tray: gratitude, love, affection. And you can say to the person, is there anything else that you want to add in there? And, they might say to you, I really want some hope. I really want to feel good about this. I really want to feel like this is going to change for me. Okay, so we can put that in there. All right, so they've got a nice selection of basically emotional support to wrap up the session. And again, this is just one approach. And they might say, okay, well, actually, I'd also really like to just do my back again, just do the spinal energy again. So we can do that as well. We'll just put that into the main hold tray. Okay, so now they've got a good selection in the main hold tray. And we can work on those separately. So again, you've got your timer switch down here, and you're moving that down to whatever time it's going to be. As I said, for a resonance session with a client, for me, I wouldn't go more than 30 minutes of the time. And I'd also be spending the other half an hour of the session really drilling into what's happening in their lives, what they've tried, what's working, what isn't working. And I'd really be wanting to understand the full picture of the client's situation, because we don't want to be in a situation with our client where they're saying, oh, I've got a back problem. And I think Resonance Pro should be able to fix it. And then they come along and they do a session and they leave. And it's like, well, what are you actually doing to solve this problem? Like, sleep is a really good example. There are a whole different variety of things that we can do to improve our sleep, from reprogramming our circadian rhythm, to delaying our coffee consumption for 90 minutes after we wake up, to, you know, making sure we finish eating 3 hours before we sleep, to making sure we have no screen time 1 hour before we sleep. There's a whole bunch of different sleep hygiene tactics, strategies that are proven by good quality science to make a difference, you know? And if a person is already doing these things and they're coming for insomnia and they're adding Resonance Pro to their already well-developed sleep hygiene protocol, then they will really be able to tell what's making a difference. But if they're coming in completely fresh, with no specific diagnosis and no research on what they've tried, it's really important that you make it clear to them that yes, resonance can benefit you, definitely can really help your body to by receiving the frequencies it needs for optimal well-being, but it's really, if you're eating at 10 o'clock at night, a lot of a huge meal, and you're up looking at screens and all these other kind of things, the chances are your sleep is still going to be quite affected, and you're really going to have to take a proper look at, what the sleep problem may be and work through a process of elimination. And, often with many clients, they want good sleep, for example, but they don't want to give up stopping eating 3 hours before they sleep. And it's to point out, look, hopefully this is really going to help you, but that may be something that is going to affect your sleep, and here's the science to support that. And you're just going to have to bear that in mind, that you're your own person and you're making your own choices. So, we're not miracle workers at Resonance Pro. We are very much holistic well-being practitioners, and we're supporting a person to take a healthy approach to their life, and we're supporting them to get into a state of optimal well-being so their body can do all the healing and recovery and harmonizing that it needs. We're not fixing anyone, we're not curing anyone. And it's very, very important that people are aware of that. Quantum interventions like Resonance Pro, support holistic lifestyle choices, support well-being. They do not fix or cure, they just get you into an optimal state. And it's really important to be aware of that. It's really important to be aware that we are analyzing our client's voice. We are not analyzing their body. We're not telling them what's going on in their body. We're analyzing their voice, and through the accuracy of our bioacoustic voice profiling technology, which is patented and very, very advanced, we are getting as accurate an interpretation as possible of what's happening according to their voice at the vibrational level in all these different well-being markers, which is a fascinating thing. But it's very much data to be worked with and used, rather than, going to a doctor's office, receiving a diagnosis and getting a cure, which is a completely different approach. Okay. And resonance is not a substitute for a diagnosis, but it can really support, well-being in many, many cases. It can really help people. And as the doctors will admit, the medical system is great in the first place. So this is where this huge new industry of wellness tools, AI-powered wellness tools, is coming into its own and making such a difference in the world. Yeah, preventative care. right? So now we're going to go into the main whole tray and we're going to do our quick balance. And what I'd be asking my client to do is specifically focus on gratitude, love, and affection, hope on that part of their spine, and saying, look, I'd really like you to just now, I've talked to them about what are the gifts that you've received from this pain. And the clients told me, look, you know what, to be honest with you, it's made me a much more tolerant person. It's made me a much more patient person. It's made me a much more grateful person, a much more humble person. I have a better relationship with my wife now. I'm kinder to my children. You know, it's done a lot of good things for me, right? And that's all usually always the case with pain. There's always going to be a good in the bad and a bad in the good, you know? Like for example, we drink too much, because we enjoy it, but there's a bad in it. It's too much for our body and it's toxic, or we have a pain in our back and it's painful, but there's a good in it. It teaches us to be a more humble, kind person. So it's really important that we look at things from a holistic perspective. So I'd be asking my client to just focus on the many gifts that this pain has given them, and also to say to the pain, thank you, you can go now. So we'll go into the quick balancing. And again, I'm just going to do 1 minute just to demonstrate. And let's see how our percentage rectifications change after this quick balancing. And again, just I would recommend my clients close their eyes and just focus on the gratitude. But for some people, if they want a stimulating visual, this can be a useful thing to offer them as well. The Resonance Go application also has fractals, which can be quite harmonizing and stimulating to watch. There is good research that, observing mantras as the Tibetan monks do, and it's been used in therapy, can have a very harmonizing effect on particularly people with anxiety. So, there's a lot of fascinating research out there. I'm always interested in the research. Veterans with PTSD, from terrible war situations, are curing their PTSD by spending time with bees in beehives that flap their wings to the tune of C. It's a profound bioresonance therapy that they're experiencing, and it's harmonizing their brains. Absolutely fascinating research. So I do encourage you to keep yourself up with the research. It's just incredible what's happening out there in the world of bioresonance therapy, and you are in, an amazing technology, an amazing time, and you've got an opportunity to help so many people and build a really great business for yourself. And that's just so exciting, isn't it? Right. So, yeah, we've experienced a small percentage rectification overall of 2%, which is positive. And as Ryan, the inventor of resonance, points out, our philosophy at Resonance is to look for smaller percentage rectifications over time rather than really big ones that tend to slip back to where they came from. We're just looking for a consistent balancing percentage rectification over time. So it's really helpful to keep a note of these percentage rectifications and check in with your client and see how they're doing. So these are the basics of Resonance Pro. To summarize, we have navigated from the client records into recording our voice, into analyzing our voice, and then we've had the option to analyze a voice again for auric field imaging. which I've told you is available. There's a course on auric field imaging feature on Resonance Academy, which you can do after this phone call if you want to. It's a short mini course that will take you through auric field imaging. So we've covered that, and then we've gone into the system overview, and we've looked at the three main categories: body, biofield, and mind. And then we've looked at the subcategories. So we've got the subcategories, and we've learned that we can put an entire category into the daily balance tray or the main hold tray, or we can open up a subcategory and we get a whole list of different biomarkers in there, and we can focus on a specific biomarker. Heavy metal toxicity, mold, fungus, all these kind of things. There are a lot of people in the world who have these problems, and it can be very expensive to do tests and all that kind of thing on them. So if they're aware they have these issues, this can be an absolutely life-changing intervention for them that can really, really help them to really feel supported and that they're actively working on these issues. So we've looked at the categories, we've looked at the subcategories, and then we've looked at the subcategories, the biomarkers within each subcategory. Okay, and we've learned that we can put an entire category into the daily balancing tray like this. Entire category goes in, or we can put a subcategory in there. So this is environmental, stress, bacteria, for example. So we've looked at those. We've looked at those. We've also looked at quick balancing. That was the first thing we looked at. Excuse me for skipping that. So we've looked at quick balancing, and we discussed that doing a 3-minute quick balance is a good way to start a session to make your client more receptive to the full specific diagnosis that you're working with them that day on. And then we've looked at the option of doing another quick balancing after the first initial quick balancing, and collaborating with our client to see what they want to do. Or we've looked at the option of going straight into the daily balancing tray and working with whatever we have in the daily balancing tray. And we've looked at the timers for these things. So the timers are here. Daily balancing tray timer is here. The quick balancing timer is here. You can go all the way up to a 16-minute quick balance. It's your call, but again, Resonance recommends 20 to 30 minutes per session, but it's really your call. We've looked at the main hold tray, and that can go up and down here. And then in a more advanced training, you'll find that you can use a process called dynamic mirror processing, where, for example, you can balance the daily balancing and the main hold trays at the same time. But we'll go into that in a more advanced session. For now, it's just really important that you master the basics. So we've talked about a session format. We did a 3-minute quick balance, then we did a 7-minute of the daily balancing tray. And then we finished off this particular session with the main hold tray. And again, because I'm come from a background of psychotherapy, and I'm always interested in the emotional component of a physical ailment and the mind-body connection, I've specifically invited my client to look at that, and they've talked to me about gratitude, love, and affection, and hope, and wanting those things in their lives. And we've added those along with their spine to finish off the session and give them a really deep experience of the emotional side of what they're looking for, as well as the physical side of what they're looking for. But again, you can collaborate with your client and say to them, well, we could do another general balancing, or we could do another focus of the daily balancing tray. It's really up to you to find what works best for your clients and be adaptable and be sensitive to their needs. And that's the main thing in my experience with being a well-rounded practitioner, is be a good listener. Listen to hear. Don't listen just to reply. Listen to respond. Be thoughtful. Don't interrupt people. Give them a chance to really be heard. And that already is a great experience for any person. It's not often that we get a chance just to be heard without being interrupted, just to be listened to rather than being told what to do. And these things, and these things can make a big difference and really help you to be a really professional and supportive holistic well-being practitioner, bioresonance practitioner with Resonance Pro. So you've got all the basics there, and we also what we've checked in with throughout this journey is the percentage rectifications, which are down at the bottom of the screen here. And again, we're keeping an eye on those to see what's happening to those throughout the session. And we're hoping for some consistent, slow and steady rectifications over time, rather than huge rectifications, which do happen from time to time as well. And that's okay too. And obviously we're consulting with the client all the way. So from today's session, my intention is that you got a clear understanding of recording your voice, quick balancing, the three main categories in the system overview, the subcategories, and all the markers in the different subcategories. You got an understanding of how to